Have you ever asked a friend to meet you or pick you up to go somewhere, and your friend says, "Oh, no problem, I'll be there at 7." But as soon as he says it, you already know he's not coming until 7:30, maybe even 8. We all seem to have that friend, don't we? But why do we know this about our friend? Well, likely it's because of his past record. You see, if our friend, although well-intentioned, has a pattern of being late, he's given us a basis to question his promise. Now, of course, as humans, we're all imperfect. But the point is, our record of works form a basis for our credibility. So now we elevate this to our Almighty God. So when it comes to Jehovah, the source of the good news, the one who cannot lie, you see, if we examine his record, we'll see that he has given us a basis to trust him. He has a perfect record of fulfilling his promises. They come true 100% of the time.
Again, we're watching William Turner, a helper to the service committee, giving the talk, Have Faith in the Good News, essentially a sales pitch to anyone in the audience who isn't yet one of Jehovah's Witnesses, who's perhaps attending at the invitation of a Jehovah's Witness. And it's another great example of William Turner making arguments that effectively backfire on closer inspection. What he's talking about here doesn't really support his argument if we apply his logic, his own logic, to its fullest extent. He's describing an untrustworthy friend.
Have you ever asked a friend to meet you or pick you up to go somewhere, and your friend says, "Oh, no problem, I'll be there at 7." But as soon as he says it, you already know he's not coming until 7:30, maybe even 8. We all seem to have that friend, don't we? But why do we know this about our friend? Well, likely it's because of his past record.
Well, what can we say about the past record of Jehovah's Witnesses? I can help with that question because, as you can see, I have rather an extensive library of Watchtower publications spanning all the way back to the beginning of the movement. And I have with me 3 examples indicating the past record of this organization when it comes to predicting things. Exhibit A, the Divine Plan of the Ages, part of a 6-part Studies in the Scriptures series written by Charles Taze Russell. 7 if you count The Finished Mystery, which you probably shouldn't because The Finished Mystery wasn't written by Charles Taze Russell. In any case, this Studies in the Scriptures series points to 1914 as the ultimate cutoff for Armageddon. In other words, Armageddon might come before 1914, but it's certainly going to come no later than 1914. 1914 is when God's kingdom is going to start ruling on the earth. That was the promise made in the Studies in the Scriptures. And if you're a Jehovah's Witness watching this saying, "Oh, these are apostate lies," there's no way Charles Taze Russell wrote that. Well, read it yourself, look up these books. I'm sure you're going to be able to find PDFs online, or maybe even find a copy on eBay. Read them and you'll see that that's very clearly the message in these books. They were pointing to 1914 as a date for Armageddon. 1914 came and went, no Armageddon. Exhibit B. Even the title of this is a false promise. Millions now living will never die. This was published in 1921. So in 1920 it says on the inside. So in 1920, 100 years ago, publications of this were being circulated telling people that millions living in 1920 will never die. So even the title is a false promise. But the reason I'm including it in my exhibits of the track record of our friend, the organization, the Watchtower organization, is because it singles out a specific year, 1925. 1925 is firmly pointed to as the date when God's kingdom starts to rule on the earth. So there's another example of the track record. And Exhibit C, this one, Life Everlasting in Freedom of the Sons of God. This was printed in 1966 and pointed very firmly to 1975 as a year of significance. Admittedly, the writers were very sneaky. Rather than dogmatically saying Armageddon's going to come in 1975, they heavily implied it, and they left it to convention speakers and to articles in the Kingdom Ministry to do the rest of the legwork, to push home this idea that that's how imminently Armageddon was going to come. A firm promise made, a false prediction. This is the track record. I could show you more examples. I could show you examples in the Live Forever book, which is the book that I studied when I was growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, saying that the generation that witnessed the events of 1914 would not die out. When we're talking about the track record of Jehovah's Witnesses, it is a track record of failure. Now, granted, William Turner isn't referring to the track record of Jehovah's Witnesses and their prophetic predictions in this particular analogy. He's instead pointing to Jehovah as the trusted friend who can be relied upon, who isn't like the friend who says he'll be there at 7, but instead arrives at 7:30 or 8. But even so, I just find it fascinating how William Turner can't help but give arguments that are so easily turned back round on the organization. He may view Bible prophecy as something that always comes true, as something that is, as David Splain put it once, right 100% of the time. That's how he's going to argue as we go into the next part, and I'm going to have to explain again why he's wrong. But I find it fascinating that in using this reasoning, in pointing to how reliable Jehovah is when it comes to essentially predicting the future, he can't help but surely raise questions in the minds of his Jehovah's Witness audience, some of whom are old enough to have lived through some of these wrong predictions about the past. Surely there are going to be older Jehovah's Witnesses sitting through this part of the talk thinking, well, never mind the track record of God. What's the track record of this organization like when it comes to promises about the future?